All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining. I see people are slowly starting to trickle in, so we'll give it a minute or so before we actually get started, make sure everybody's in and situated. So just give us a few seconds to get that going, and then we'll get started. All right. Hi, everyone. We just opened up the Zoom for people to start joining. So people will be trickling in, getting audio figured out as we get started. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. Welcome to all of you who are joining us today. We're so glad that you're here for the first webinar of the fall semester. My name is Dalton Dye. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm an assistant director for new student family programs here at Duke. We're all really thrilled that you've taken time out of your day to come join us for this evening's webinar, or morning or afternoon, or wherever in the world you're joining from us. Welcome. It's very important, and we're so glad you're here. If you've been a part of our webinar series before, welcome back. For those of you who are joining for the first time, we host these webinars about once a month throughout the academic year to keep parents, families, and loved ones connected to the experience of your students here at Duke. We try to host a wide variety of subjects to make sure that you get full exposure to everything that's going on campus. And we do record each of our webinars and post them on our website with links to the recordings on YouTube. So if you want to review any information that we've shared out previously, or would like to revisit this topic later on, you can check those out. Some of the topics we've covered before include health resources, both mental and physical, conversations on gender violence prevention and intervention, and some conversations with the deans of both the Pratt School of Engineering and the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. Duke football coach Mike Elko joined us last spring, which is really exciting. So a pretty broad array of topics. But the next topic is a conversation with some of our colleagues from DukeEngage, Inga Peterson, Aaron Kraus, and a couple of students who will be here to participate in the conversation and share a little bit about their experiences. Before I turn it over to them, I do just want to give you all a heads up that we are recording the webinar. It'll be posted online after we're finished, and we'll also be monitoring the Q&A chat at the bottom. So please drop your questions in as we go. At the end of our session tonight, we'll have some time to ask some questions and round out the conversation. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Inga and let her take it over from there.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize that we were the first one this semester. I'm excited about that, so thank you. I am going to share my screen. I'm Inga Peterson, and I'm the Associate Director of DukeEngage. And I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Aaron Kraus, and two students, Matthew and Catherine. So let me just look over here and make sure I am sharing the right screen with you all. Okay. All right. So hopefully, Aaron, do I have it right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So this is a picture of a bridge that really bears the imprint of hundreds of minds and hands. It was built in Eswatini by DukeEngage students and community partners this summer in 9 weeks. I know, mic drop. DukeEngage really exists to do two things that are embodied in this bridge for everyone involved: the students, the faculty, the staff, and the community partners. The first is really to do the external work of addressing social inequalities. And two, and perhaps more importantly, to do the internal work of figuring out how how students, faculty, staff, and community partners really want to show up in the world every day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bridge program and how it relates to other DukeEngage programs, and then afterwards we're going to hear from our two students and Aaron. First, I'm going to go through the basics. pretty quickly. All of this is on our website. We have an FAQ page. Our website is dukeengage.duke.edu. Erin made me a great QR code that I completely forgot to put in this presentation. So just remember to go to the website and check out the FAQs. But so here are the basics. So DukeEngage is an 8-week summer community engagement program. For those of you who are older, my age, it's like a mini Peace Corps for Duke students, if you're familiar with the Peace Corps. Students participate in small groups of about anywhere from about 6 to 12. This year we have 22 programs, 8 of which are based in the US and the rest of which are at international sites. Each program is led by a Duke faculty member, and it focuses on a particular theme, everything from immigration to sustainability to human rights. The programs are not for credit, like study abroad, but they're really considered experiential education. And some of them can satisfy some academic criteria, like the public policy internship and the global health field experience. So all first, second, and third year students who are in good standing, and by that we mean are good citizens of the university, are eligible to do DukeEngage. And it doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong time to do a DukeEngage program. The program's a full-time commitment, including full-time work during the day and activities in the evening and on weekends. It's fully funded by Duke. So all of your students' costs will be covered, everything from vaccines to flights to housing to food and activities. Your student will not earn a stipend that they can save, but if they receive financial aid and have a summer earnings requirement, that requirement will be waived the summer in which they participate. So every program is open to all students. A few programs, like the Bridge program that I'm going to talk about, may have some prerequisites, but most of them are just language prerequisites. And that doesn't mean that students have to take a specific class, but more they need to demonstrate a level of fluency to the program director. So lastly, we provide orientation and training. All students participate in a 4-seminar, a day-long workshop that we offer in the spring on ethics, identity, culture, and health and safety. And each group will meet by themselves at least twice. So, as I mentioned, the bridge was built in Eswatini. Some of you, again, who are older like me, may recognize it as Swaziland. They changed the name in the last few years. Eswatini is a landlocked country in southern Africa, and it is bordered by Mozambique in the northeast, and the rest of the border is South Africa. It's one of the smallest countries in Africa. It's 120 miles north to south and 81 miles east to west. This is the side of the bridge. Summer, when the students were there, is the dry season in Eswatini. And when the water's low, it's not too difficult for the rural communities to traverse back and forth. In the rainy season, however, the students on their way to and from school sometimes have to wade through water up to their necks and carry their backpacks and their shoes on top of their heads to dry. So to keep them dry. So nearly everyone has had to cross the river at some point, or have had a grandchild or a niece or a nephew or another relative who did. And it can be dangerous. Over the years, there have been a significant number of injuries that have warranted admission to the hospital, and there has actually been some loss of life. So there are really 3 pillars that DukeEngage is structured around. The first is partnership. So every program is developed by Duke faculty members like David Schad, the old guy in the back of the slide, in partnership with the community. So these partnerships are collaborative. So students work alongside local organizations, many of whom have been community partners to our faculty for years, or to DukeEngage for years. These partnerships are community driven, meaning that the students are working on issues that community members have identified as important to them, not on what issues we at Duke think need to be addressed. In this case, the community submitted a request to their Ministry of Economic Planning and Development. Then Engineers in Action, which is an international organization that builds infrastructure for communities in need, selected the site and then reached out to David, who is a professor of the practice in civil engineering here at Duke, and is a longtime collaborator with the organization and also with us here at DukeEngage. I love this picture because this is David Schad. I don't know if you can see, but he's on a bed of nails, and he's teaching part of a course, which is what the engineering students take before building the bridge, and he's doing a lesson on force. I think she's using her hammer on him because he's wearing a Carolina t-shirt, but that's neither here nor there. So the second pillar of DukeEngage is really reflection and training. So as I said, students who commit to the DukeEngage program are also committing to cohort meetings and the day-long workshop that I mentioned that start the experiential learning process. So learning through reflecting on doing. So taking time to really understand the expertise and the experience of those with whom they're going to be engaging with, and really thinking critically about what they're going to do, why they're doing it, what it means for them, what it means for community, purpose, consequence, change, all of those things. The process of intentional focus on what they're doing and noticing and how they're being and showing up is something that they start to learn while they're still at Duke, and then that continues over the summer. So like I said, most programs don't have a prerequisite for coursework. In the case of Eswatini here, though, in addition to our orientation, the students obviously had to have some idea of how to build a bridge. So before they even went to their site, many of them had already put in hundreds of hours of work in the project through David's spring class and through there's a club on campus called the Duke Engineers in International Development, or DEED. So the students had a substantial investment in this particular project before they even went to the airport. And that is what's a little bit different about this project than other DukeEngage projects at other sites. So the third pillar of DukeEngage is really immersion. So we ask students to work to position themselves within a community that they really get to know, not from the perspective of a tourist, but as someone participating in and taking time to understand the everyday life of the community. So this picture is from a really long construction plan for the Eswatini site. You'll notice that they even had students assigned here to do cultural relations or the immersion piece. Most programs don't go into quite that level of detail, nor do they have a really long plan. So this is a group of students who ended up in Eswatini before they left, and then when they got there, by the time the students had arrived, the community had, many of whom had worked in the mines in South Africa, had already started excavating a large portion of the foundation. The students really felt the community's collective commitment to the bridge to be inspirational. And according to them, there were community members who walked over 2 hours to get to the site every day. They had 20 to 40 community members at the site every day, a good portion of them who were well over the age of 60. And community members made all sorts of contributions, including this little guy or gal who is involved in helping building the bridge. And I love this picture because apparently it's a universal thing that toddlers put their shoes on the wrong foot. So I just had to include this picture in the video. But there were also a group of women who cooked lunch every day, and the chairwoman of the community's bridge committee was raised funds to pay for gasoline and for to organize the trucks to move materials. And there was a man who served as the tool storekeeper who the students got really close to while they were there. So you may be wondering, like I was, how you build a bridge from the ground up, and apparently you build it from under the ground up. So this took a really long time to dig. The bridge is the largest suspended bridge that that the partner has done in any of the countries they've operated in, and it's in a floodplain region. So there was a massive amount of holes that needed to be dug. I say that because, like many of our sites, the work is really slow and difficult. Excavation continued for 2 weeks after the students got there. Then they built ramp walls, stone by stone, until they were 15 feet off the ground and 16 feet underneath it. And they worked with a group of masons from Eswatini that led them in their work. So there are always unexpected hurdles in DukeEngage programs, and students really have to learn to be patient and flexible and resilient. Like here, when one of the cables fell off the delivery truck on its way to the site, a cable weighs nearly a ton and normally requires a forklift to move it. And it took 15 people to lift this cable and put it back on the truck. And I have a quote from a student who said, "I learned so quickly that no matter what plan you make, it's going to go wrong. You just have to, on the fly, get people together, source a truck, drive it out, and figure it out." And these are the kinds of things that students really have to come to terms with when they're doing the DukeEngage program. So here they are unspooling the cables. And so walking the cables across the river really required everyone. So this was the first time they were all together side by side. And they carried the cable, 1,900 pounds of cable through the river on their shoulders, and then they walked them up to the towers. So here they are walking them across, and still walking and still walking. So you can probably imagine, when I saw this picture, both as a parent and as the person in charge of DukeEngage, how I felt. And I know that some of you may be thinking, if you hadn't been before, "No, ma'am, not my child." I like to pretend that they're really close to the ground, but they're really not. But I want to point out that we spend a lot of time working out the logistics for each program, where students are going to live. In this case, they were actually in sleeping bags in tents for 9 weeks. Usually that is not the case. Where they're going to eat, what they're going to eat, where they're going to work. And part of that planning involves risk assessment plans and participation agreements with students and training on how to manage safety issues and cross-cultural relations. So this group and I went through a bit this summer. We had an accident where someone hurt their hand pretty badly. She's doing okay now. And we had bats in the tent. So there are different kinds of things that we need to deal with all during the summer. And as I said, students need to learn to be really flexible and resilient. Actually, in this picture, these students are leading a safety presentation on how to get back up to hoist themselves back up if their harnesses, if they fall, even though they have harnesses on, so they can get back up to the cables. Oops, I went backwards, sorry. So just in the center of the completed bridge, here are the forms of several of the students, and they decided to camp out on the bridge during their last night and watch the sunrise over the river. So what I'd like to say, and here are the students and the community members all crossing the bridge at the same time. I think this program and the DukeEngage program in general really demonstrate how community collaboration and immersion yield impact over a lifetime. So as of last summer, we've sent 5,329 students into communities in 46 cities and 85 countries. During the 8 weeks of immersion over 16 summers, Duke students have logged over 1.7 million hours of work in communities across the globe. Through DukeEngage, students have turned their classroom knowledge into action, supported systemic change, and returned to campus with refined real-world skills and enhanced ability to work across difference and a more coherent sense of purpose. So I am going to stop sharing and let the program continue. I hope I'm not sharing anymore. Y'all still there?
Yes, we're still here, and you're not sharing anymore. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I think with that, we'll maybe turn it over to Aaron to have some conversations with the students that we have on our panel tonight.
Yes, so thank you all for joining this evening. I think what Inga shared about the Eswatini program is a beautiful picture of what DukeEngage does and community partnership. And I actually invited a couple of our students who participated in two different types of DukeEngage programs to share about their experience and how it connects to community immersion, reflection, engagement, and for them to really share with you all about their experience. I'll have Catherine start first, who did our DukeEngage Gateway program. And that's not one of the 8-week programs that faculty members will lead over the summer, but it's actually a program for matriculating students coming into Duke to have an opportunity to do community engagement work in their own home community for 5 weeks, and to also work with faculty members and other students to reflect upon their own civic engagement work and how community engagement, reflection, immersion actually shows up for them, and for them to think about their own position and purpose in the world. And then also I have Matthew here, who will share about his experience, who did 8 weeks in Korea for our Korea program this past year, and how he was able to really grow and learn from his DukeEngage experience. So I'm excited to hear from them. They'll each have about 3 to 5 minutes to share with you about what they learned, what they did, who they are. And then after that, I'll share briefly about another program that DukeEngage does, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So Catherine, you can go ahead and go first.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Catherine Murphy, and I'm a freshman here at Duke. Tentatively, I'm planning to study mathematics and economics, but I am a freshman, so this is all very tentative. And I participated in the DukeEngage Gateway program. So the Gateway program, like Dr. Krause was saying, it's a little different. So the Gateway program entails completing community service in your hometown the summer before freshman year of college. So I volunteered with the Ronald McDonald House, which is a nonprofit that provides housing to families while their children are undergoing long-term medical treatments. So this could be anything from the neonatal intensive care unit for infants, fittings for prosthetics, or like orthopedic surgeries that require long-term care and housing. So my work specifically with the Gateway program and the Ronald McDonald House was more with the management side than the actual care side. So I was in charge of creating and managing budgets for one of the three big fundraisers that the house does every year. And this one was a golf tournament fundraiser. So I was in charge of making thank you calls to volunteers and donors and cold calling companies and prospects and asking for donations and kind of managing what we're bringing in versus what we were spending on the event so that we could maximize what the house was able to reap from this event. And it was very successful. It was super fun. I actually got to attend the fundraiser at the beginning of August. And it was super cool kind of seeing how all the details I had been planning came to life, actually. And I got to meet the people that I had registered online for the event. So that was definitely super cool. And all of this, in addition, I also just helped with running the functional day-to-day tasks of the house. This could be anything, excuse me, this could be anything from like cooking meals for the families, preparing rooms before family moved in, or just running activities for the parents that they could kind of just take a break and have some more mindfulness in their life because it's a little bit crazy for them at the moment. So I wanted to participate in the Gateway program originally because it provided the really cool opportunity to get involved in the Duke community before actually coming to campus, and also being involved in my hometown community still, since I was still in my hometown, which is up in Connecticut, so a little while away. So it was cool kind of being able to get involved in both. And I've also been volunteering with the Ronald McDonald House for over 8 years. So it's been a really big part of my life. And the Gateway program provided me with another way to get involved in this organization in a much larger way than I would have been able to without it. So I was definitely grateful for that. The Gateway program for me was personally very rewarding. I stayed at Ronald McDonald House when I was 4 years old and developed a rare neurological condition. So I required care for several months, and my family and I stayed in a house while I was undergoing this treatment. So I know kind of what the children and families are going through. And it was not very fun. So I definitely appreciate all the support that the volunteers and the staff poured in. And I was really grateful to have the opportunity to provide that support for children and families that were the position that my family was once in. So it was personally very rewarding for me. Also at Duke, the Gateway program led me to join several student community service organizations. One is DukeEngage, which is super cool, and it actually 3D prints prosthetic limbs for children in the Durham area for free. So that definitely ties in a lot to what I was doing at the house. So that was definitely super cool for me. And all in all, as I hope you can see, the Gateway program was just a really cool way for me to get involved in Duke and also stay in my hometown. And I would definitely recommend it for anyone considering.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. I think that's a really great connection and story to how being immersed in your own community allows you to learn a lot about service. And we definitely encouraged our Gateway students as we were doing different modules around community and civic engagement to connect to what was happening here locally in Durham and at Duke, and for them to hear from different civic leaders and various Duke faculty and leaders to think about how they can be intentional about immersing in community and continuing doing work to grow and learn in their own purpose. So next, Matthew will be able to share about his summer experience.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew. I'm currently a sophomore at Duke and I'm intending to major in international comparative studies with a concentration on East Asia. I think I was in the DukeEngage Korea program, and I think that was the only program in Asia at the time. And so during the summer, we would just go into these alternative schools that they're called 대안학교 in Korean, to teach people English. These were schools that were usually not federally recognized, not federally funded, usually in low-income areas in the city of Seoul. And there were students of all grades that we taught in these multiple schools, starting from really like toddler children that couldn't really speak any language proficiently, to full adult learners that were usually refugees. And these students had come from all over the world, especially countries like North Korea, China, Russia, Philippines, Vietnam, and so much more. And so between our teaching sessions, we would also have excursions we went to Jeju Island, where we learned about the history of the war, the Korean War, and we also had lectures at like government facilities about the process of reunifying the Koreas and like the societal implications it might have. And so there was a lot of academic engagement as well as the direct service part of it. And so I think the main reason why I wanted to do DukeEngage Korea especially was because I always wanted to have like this international type of education, like a global citizen, as they say it. I think of studying abroad in a few semesters as well. And I felt that DukeEngage was like the first stepping stone to like achieving that kind of mindset, that goal I had. And I felt that I was able to also reconnect with my culture because I was born in South Korea and I hadn't visited in quite a while. And so going back to Korea and kind of utilizing my language capabilities, I think was a great perk for me. And that's what really allowed me to have a more fulfilling experience in the Korea program. And as I mentioned, I'm majoring in international comparative studies, where we learned about a lot of different histories, a lot of different cultures, especially in the East Asian region. So I felt like, especially for me, going there and learning firsthand about the people there, the communities, was really invaluable for the education that I tried to pursue when I was in class at Duke. And so I think the weeks that I had in South Korea were probably one of the best summers of my life, I would say. I think I was able to have such amazing memories with not only the people, the students that I taught, but also with my peers. And I was able to connect with people that I otherwise would have never met, even if I was in Korea. I remember this principal and the pastor in his farewell address to us Duke students after our weeks there in the institution. He would say that if any of us was willing to come back to the institution to become full-time teachers upon graduating Duke, he would provide for our wedding and like provide housing and do everything he can to make sure we were comfortable in the country. And I was really touched by what he said, and I think that reflected a really big accomplishment in kind of catering a community for us and having these people to go back to whenever I visited South Korea again. And I think that kind of connection was just so special for me that I forged over the summer. And also, as I said, I made lifelong friends here at Duke. The 10 people I went to Korea with, we tried to get dinner every week, even though we're all super busy. And I think another important thing is my connection with my professors. There were 2 Korean professors that went to DukeEngage with us. And back at Duke, they are in the Korean department. They always host like Korean events and also weekly language tables. And I always participate with them to make sure I kind of maintain that connection with my professors. I do the language table. I teach Korean. I'm also research assisting for Professor Kwon, who was the program director of DukeEngage Korea, because I wanted to continue learning some of the histories that I'd gotten a taste of when I was in South Korea. And I think the connection I have with my professors, my peers, and the people back in Korea were just things that made the summer so invaluable for me. And even though it was hard for a lot of my peers to adjust in South Korea because of the language barrier and the cultural barriers and whatnot, I think everyone would say that they would want to go back and do it all over again if they can. And so I would highly recommend DukeEngage to anyone that was interested. It was really the best summer I've had. And I would also recommend the Korea program, even though I'm a little bit biased, but I truly hope you consider going to Korea next summer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Matthew. And so as you can kind of see, there are different types of DukeEngage programs, especially the 8-week program. They have various curricular emphasis. And so they can, the type of work students might be doing, such as in Eswatini, might be hands-on and tangible, where you're building a bridge, or you might be directly working with students in education and asking really large questions around equity, or you might be addressing issues around migration and immigration in places like Miami or policy in DC. And so there are various types of DukeEngage programs, and students get to immerse themselves in thinking around social inequalities and issues. And after students are able to complete 8-week immersion through the DukeEngage program, they can continue that civic engagement work through another fellowship that we have called the Broadhead Fellowship. Many students who want to continue their DukeEngage experience after doing a summer of DukeEngage are able to formulate an independent project in the US while continuing community partnership. They're also able to connect with a Duke alumni mentor and receive some professional development modules to really think about their future and connecting that to the community engagement work that they're doing over the summer. And so I hope that gives you just a snapshot of what DukeEngage is about. We definitely encourage you to go to our website Many of you all have heard of the program and are probably interested in having other different questions on the various programs this year and why you want to apply. We have 20 plus programs that students can participate in and submit an application for this upcoming year. And so I'll invite Inga to come back on and we will open up for Q&A. Before we begin the Q&A from the audience and answer that question, I would love for maybe Catherine or Matthew just to share about how perhaps one of the values that we mentioned, reflection, immersion. I think you all talked about immersion a lot, but how reflection really shaped your experience during the program.
Sure, I can go first. So for the Gateway program, we actually had every other week, we met with like, I think 5 or 6 other students and a faculty member from Duke. And we actually had like an hour every other week to reflect on the service that we were doing, kind of how it tied into our identities and how it tied into also our goals for Duke and also our goals after Duke. So I think that kind of having that chance to get together with a smaller group of students and a faculty member and just really take the time out of your day to think about kind of how you want to move forward with the service that you're doing was really meaningful.
Yeah, we also had every week a weekly meeting with the professors and all of our DukeEngage cohort to talk about how we're going to reflect in our service that we're going to continue over the summer. And also we read about the Korean War. We had actually had reading assignments to do every week, and it all led up to the Jeju excursion at the end. And we were just the reading was pretty dense. It was like academic papers, but we were able to understand how the Korean War kind of polarized the nation and how that kind of political polarization can kind of trickle down to the individual citizens. And so when we visited Jeju, we were part of this like activist organization, and we were able to talk to the advocates kind of that were anti-war and pro-peace at the time, and think about how we could carefully kind of learn from them while also not imposing our own beliefs as people from America, like the superpower nation, all over the world, and how we could more effectively kind of learn from them and also help in their advocacy work for peace, for their anti-war movements. And also, when we were back in the mainland and not in the island, we were really reflecting on how we shouldn't kind of pursue this kind of volunteerism idea that we learned before our engagement there in one of our sessions, I believe. And since we were also from America in like this big institution that is Duke that was paying for us to come and teach these students that were very underprivileged, we felt this kind of imbalance in our privileges, in our social standings. And we really soon realized that we shouldn't just be imposing our beliefs in whether it be through cultural expectations or like academic expectations to them. And we should more be aware of how we impose ourselves and the kind of academic and also personal connection that we were trying to forge with the students.
Thank you, Catherine and Matthew both. So I think, Dalton, if you want to hop on and help to facilitate some of the Q&A, I think we have first couple of questions here that popped up.
Absolutely. So we do have the Q&A going. I think a couple of themes that I'm seeing so far are just around like the logistics, like how do you apply? When do you apply? Matthew, Catherine, how did you hear about these opportunities in the first place? And so kind of maybe like leading up to actually getting accepted for it.
Aaron, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so there are individual programs that you can apply to. As I mentioned, there are 20 plus this year. So you would go to our website and select group programs, and you would be able to view from there the specific type of program that you're interested in applying to, not just the location, but the kind of work, what is the theme, what is the social issue that the program is trying to address. And the application has about 5 short answers that you will respond to. And there's usually an interview process that program directors include as they're trying to select their students for their cohort for the summer. And the application for this year opened up this week. So October 2nd was when the application opened up, and it will actually close November 1st. really important is that for current students, if you are currently interested in applying to DukeEngage program, we have our DukeEngage days starting Monday from the 9th all the way to the 26th. And that is a time in which DukeEngage program directors who lead the various faculty-led programs for the 8 weeks will do 45-minute info sessions. And from there, they will actually tell specifically about their program, what students, the type of work they will be doing, give room for them to ask questions, and for students to even get to know the program director themselves before submitting an application. So those are some key things that you should have in mind as you're thinking about applying and submitting an application for DukeEngage.
Great.
Colton, do you want me to just go through these questions here?
Yeah, I was just kind of going through and grabbing a couple. So if there's any that you stand out,
Okay.
feel free to ask. Repeat the
Sure.
question, answer.
Let's just head through them. The first question is if you're eligible to do an international project if you don't speak a foreign language. Most of our programs, like I said, I hope I said this, don't have prerequisites. Some of the programs you have to speak a certain level of a language, but certainly that is not the majority of our programs. So as Aaron said, and I should have said this first off, the application's open, check out the programs, and it'll say on there whether there's any sort of prerequisite at all. The next question is, will students at Duke be informed about these programs for their consideration applications? Yes, we have, Aaron is in charge of recruitment, and we've got a lot of things out there, but
Yes.
go to the website at dukeengage.duke.edu and you will be in the know and help us spread the word. I mentioned that the program also includes areas of public policy and global health. Could I elaborate? Yes. So what I was saying was that while we don't give course credit for DukeEngage, there are certain programs that you can get credit for as experiential education pieces of certain programs like public health and global health. So I actually think all of our programs, I could be lying to you.
No, that's accurate for the public policy requirement.
Or cover work with the public policy certificate, and there's information in the profile description about if things will count or not. And if there's not in a particular program, you can always ask us. We can help you figure that out.
On our website, just quick, Inga, on our website, we have an academic connections page that actually breaks down how students can have some of their requirements for their experiential education covered for their major. So, yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Are all the programs as realistic? Staying intense for 9 weeks? No, not at all. That is definitely the most rustic one. And I don't know if I know anymore. We don't usually have programs where there are bats involved. So, but I brought that up to kind of tell you a little bit about the support and the safety and all those kind of things that we work through in the summer. I am on call 24/7 in the summer, so I get to try to figure out what you do with bats in Africa when they're in your tent. Catherine, I think the next question is for you. How was 5-week program faculty lead, or which were the interactions with Duke faculty?
Okay, sure. So every other Friday we had those reflection groups that I was mentioning before. So that was with a Duke faculty member, and that was led by the Duke faculty member to kind of facilitate how they want to go about reflecting on your service, and kind of, like I said, those ties with identity and community that were brought up throughout the summer. And also on Wednesdays, every week for the 5 weeks, there was a Duke faculty-led larger webinar where we'd have guest speakers come in and guest presenters, and that was also Duke led. So definitely plenty of interaction with Duke faculty.
If I could just add, I didn't say anything about the Gateway or Broadhead programs because I get so excited about the Eswatini Bridge and the pictures, to be frank, in a presentation like this. But the Gateway program is really phenomenal. And what I like about it is that students are actually connecting to Duke before they get on campus. So they are connecting with faculty, they're connecting with other students, they're learning about ways in which they can engage in the community in Durham when they get here. But even more, one of the challenges I think for DukeEngage is that you go into a community for 8 weeks, which is a really short period of time, right? And you have to learn so much about context and try to understand the landscape. And for Gateway, these students are working in their home communities and they understand the context, they understand the landscape, so they can contribute, I think, a lot quicker. And it's an opportunity also for them the summer before they leave to really kind of pay homage to their town before they leave campus forever. I mean, leave home forever, maybe. All right.
Is DukeEngage for parents? Not quite.
I wish. Yeah. Aaron, do you want to take some of these?
Next one, for a student who is undecided in their major, are any of these DukeEngage programs exploratory in nature to help with deciding a major? So which ones? That's a good question. I think students who do it, well, one, DukeEngage is not only for a specific major. So you can be majoring in computer science and do a DukeEngage program that focuses on music and hip hop pedagogy in Chicago, or be interested in thinking about climate change and go to the Marine Lab. And so I think we definitely encourage students who are applying to DukeEngage programs to explore a variety of interests, especially as you're thinking about various opportunities for the future as a Duke student, to expose yourself to a plethora of different types of programs. I think that can ultimately help you sort through where your interests really lie. Doing service in the community, really immersing yourself in the community, and thinking around deep critical reflection within a cohort helps you, I think more deeply about your own values and your own sense of purpose and belonging. And maybe there's an academic connection that comes out of that work that drives you to a specific major. But yeah, that would be how I would respond to that question most readily. And I think all of our programs provide that kind of opportunity. My daughter says most students who participated in DukeEngage do it after their sophomore year. Is that the case? So actually, the baby is kind of split. It is kind of 50% historically. Sophomore year, students have applied after their for their sophomore summer, but students who are freshmen, I believe someone asked that question. Freshmen can apply. You can apply as a first year, second year, or third year. I believe historically about 25% of students apply either after their freshman year or junior year summer. And then about 50% of that after their sophomore year summer going into their junior year.
Aaron, can I add to that real quickly?
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter at what point students do DukeEngage. Some program directors like to choose older students who are more experienced and have more of a sense of things. Some program directors really like the curiosity that tends to come with a first-year student. In terms of the students, really, to Aaron's last answer, it's a great way to explore when you're after your first year and really kind of think about, okay, now that I know this information, how do I want to show up on campus when I go back? What kind of communities do I want to be involved in? You haven't declared your major at the end of freshman year. So it can help in thinking about all of those things. For juniors, it can be sort of a capstone, right, to your Duke experience. So there really is no right time to apply to DukeEngage. I want to answer the next one. How many students are usually together in a program? 6 to 12. Is it safe generally, no matter what country they're in? I wanted to address this because we have no control over what happens, just like you as parents don't have control over your students if you live in New York and they're walking down the street, or you live in Tokyo and you're walking down the street, or we don't have control over that. What I can say, however, is that Duke safety and security is the most important thing for Duke with its students. And especially in a program like this, like I may have mentioned, we go through a risk assessment process with all of these sites on the front end. And then when the students are getting ready to go, we have emergency response. There are not sites that are more dangerous than other sites. It's just, you're out in the world. We also help students really think about, starting with the workshops, about safety and security and what that looks like. Somebody else asked if it's a competitive program. I wanted to address this as well. So I understand why this question is being asked, but I want to encourage you to just think about, not to compare to other people. Different programs choose students for different reasons. My recommendation is to choose a program in which you have a deep interest and curiosity, no experience, or you have experience, and you want to get an understanding of other opportunities that are available and what you're thinking about. What we really want are people who are committed, are interested in engaging with the community, are interested in working across difference, are flexible, are resilient. Those are the things that we're looking for in DukeEngage. So I can't really answer the question about how competitive particular programs are, but I hope that helps.
I'll answer one of the questions, but Inga, before that, how does DukeEngage compare to other summer international opportunities Duke provides students?
Summer international opportunities.
Yeah.
It says Ben's going to, no, that's not it. Okay.
Oh.
All of these are floating around. Okay. So DukeEngage is really the grandparent of a lot of the experiential education programs on campus. Now, study abroad has been around forever. And I would say that is, I'm trying to think of other international programs. So Global Health sends some students out to some international sites as a part of their major. Study abroad has classes all year long. And I'm trying to think of Basque Connections is another program that was sort of the grandchild of DukeEngage. That is an opportunity where students work with graduate students and with faculty on some international programs and work with community partners, and it's part of a bunch of courses as well. There's a program called Duke Immerse, which they study on campus for a semester and then they go to other sites. I think the real difference here is in terms of, with DukeEngage, how long they're there. We really want them, again, 8 weeks is not long, although it is long to some, 19 and 20-year-olds. It's not a long time, but it's enough of time to really be able to get established and start to understand, to have real curiosity, to kind of be an anthropologist and thinking about, okay, what does this world look like? how do I want to show up individually? How do I want to show up in community? What is my purpose in all of this? And I think and a lot of the other programs also do this as well, but I think it's the length of time for DukeEngage, and really being in community, not off studying somewhere in a school that's a little bit different than these other programs. Did that answer the question? Or you want to add
I believe
something?
so.
Okay.
No, I was gonna move to the next one. So as regarding applying to multiple programs this year, you are only able to apply to one program. And so we definitely encourage you to go to program specific info sessions and read closely the program profiles and email us at dukeengage@duke.edu so that you can have any of your questions answered and asked. We definitely want to help advise. We can also connect you with students. If it's a recurring program, you can talk with students who've done the program previously. We definitely love to do that for you. In regard to applying, it says, can students apply and take part in more than one summer DukeEngage program? It's actually one time, so it's fully funded. And so students who apply that one time, if you're admitted into the program, that'll be just your one opportunity to do that.
Okay, we are coming up on just a couple minutes left, so I maybe wanted to round it out with one more question to Matthew and Catherine, and then we'll wrap up with some housekeeping. So Matthew and Catherine, as has kind of been alluded to, there's a ton of things that students can do with their summers. So if you had a classmate, a peer who is on the fence, like, I don't know, should I do this, should I not? What would be your advice to them? Like, what would sell them on DukeEngage being a viable option for their summers?
I would say in terms of the gateway program, I would definitely encourage it just because it really eased my transition to Duke. Especially because I didn't know anyone coming to Duke. I knew one person and that was it. So coming here and having that community right away, we had a little brunch where everyone that did the gateway program could meet. I think that really helped, and just kind of being in contact with people before coming to Duke really eased the transition. So I would definitely encourage everyone to do it.
Yeah, I think for me, it opened my eyes to what Duke has to offer. By going abroad for one summer for just 8 weeks, I was open to so many different opportunities, to so many different communities I could keep in touch with, and most importantly, to the people at Duke, the professors at Duke, and the limitless opportunities for further research for my academic passions that I gained from DukeEngage. So I think just by spending a short time in the summer with people that you like, from people that are at Duke, with mentors and guidances, I think it will open your eyes to the limitless possibilities that Duke has to offer after your summer. So I think everyone should at least try once.
That's awesome. Thank you to both so much for coming on and sharing your experiences with all of our families and guests here. It's really important to hear directly from your mouths about what actually happened. And I think it's really powerful that you're able to share that with us. So thank you all so much. Aaron and Inga, thank you for all your work you do with DukeEngage, both leading up to the summers and then helping students come back and process and reflect and all that. It's really good work you all are doing, so keep it up. We are just, yeah, great.
Thanks, Catherine and Matthew.
I say first one of the year, and I think we set the bar really high. So, going forward, we're going to tell the rest of our partners they got to up their game. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You bet. And then just closing it out for all the parents and families, as we said, it'll be recorded and posted online. So feel free to share it out with anybody you think might be interested. If you do have other questions that come up, the website is a great resource. There's some contact information. So let us know how we can help support you or what questions we can answer. But I think that's all I have, unless Aaron, Inga, Matthew, Catherine, anything else you all would like to add? No?
Okay. No. Apply.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, day, wherever you are, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks.
Thank you.